Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and today on Forgotten Mysteries, I have for you quite a treat. So, dun da da da, without further ado, it is The Nanny by Evelyn Piper, and this is copyright 1964 by Athenaeum. So, Evelyn Piper, you do not hear much about these days. Her real name was Merriam Modell, and she wrote maybe 10 really excellent suspense books. Not all of them were top-notch, but they were all good. And I should preface this video by saying that she wrote one of the best books that I've read in the last 5 years or so, by the title of Bunny Lake is Missing. If you have not read that book, I urge you to find yourself a copy and devour it. It's so well done, so fascinating, and it's this sort of perfectly balanced book where you never know what's going on, and you're constantly questioning the protagonist's hold on reality. Eventually became a movie, and the movie was pretty good too, except for the ending, which for some bizarre reason chose to depart from the book. And of course, the book had a much better ending, and the movie's ending was disappointing. But definitely try Bunny Lake is Missing. If you can't find a copy of Bunny Lake is Missing, then The Nanny may be the book for you. So I don't know if you can see on the cover here. This is blurbing taken to an extreme, where blurbs take up more of the cover than the title and the author's name. Masterful, a standout, pulse-pounding, nerve-shattering, superb suspense, a rare treat, extraordinary. And there's more on the back. Okay, so clearly contemporaries had many good things to say about Evelyn Piper. And this is one case where I have to say I agree with them. I don't know how I really feel about blurbing today. It's kind of gotten out of control, in my opinion. It seems like so many blurbs on contemporary books promise you the moon and the stars. They use superlatives and imply that if you don't buy and read this book, your life will somehow go down the crapper, that you're missing out on one of the great cultural events of the millennium. I mean, it's almost become a contest for who can phrase their blurbs in the most, the most over-the-top sense to make you think that what is actually a pretty mediocre book is the top of the line. So I don't put much stock in blurbs from today, but I do put more stock in blurbs from then, from the 60s, because if you do a close study of these blurbs, you'll see many of them say, oh, I enjoyed this book, or this book was really good, or, buckle up your seatbelt, baby, it's going to be a bumpy ride. They talk about enjoying the book in human as opposed to superhuman terms, which means that your expectations are set for something that you'll enjoy, but not something that you will end up disliking because it doesn't hold those crazy superlatives that people have said. So, and of course, back then there were also so many more outlets for reviewing. Every newspaper and magazine. I mean, my heart breaks to think about how few venues there are for really quality criticism these days. I wish I could single-handedly start a one-person crusade to have book reviews published more widely by more media. But those media don't exist anymore, so I guess we're left with book talk and then the industry review magazines, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, Library Journal, etc. So anyway, boy, this is really a long-winded way of getting started on talking about The Nanny, but those of you who subscribe to this channel know I can be a little bit discursive. I hope it's part of my charm. So The Nanny is part of a rather long line of films and books that fit into a genre known as, I get a kick out of this, the psycho-biddy genre. And I can see where some would find that term maybe slightly offensive. I don't think any harm is intended by that. If you're thinking of sort of the prototypical psycho-biddy piece of fiction, think Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, where the protagonist and the villain is a very mentally unstable older woman. Although that's not where I first learned that term. The first time I saw that term was in conjunction with a book by Ursula Curtis, who I love and who I have to do some reviews on here about, called The Forbidden Garden. And that book is also led by a villainess of a certain age who is a complete psycho. So the nanny in Evelyn Piper's The Nanny is truly a psycho. She is an English nanny working in the United States who is just rotten to the core and evil. And while there are elements of mystery in Evelyn Piper's books, they're probably better described as novels of suspense, because you know from fairly early in the book that the nanny, her name is only given to us once, she's just known as Nanny to everybody, is just a bad egg. Bad egg, willing to murder children if she has to. What takes this book over the top is that there's not one psycho, but two psychos, both well drawn in their own psychosis. Nanny, rather quiet, quietly manipulative, no less evil. And then there's a daughter of a doctor who is more of a bouncing off the walls kind of psycho, who is really almost Charles Manson-esque in her the horrible things that she is willing to do for no other reason than that she is a complete psychopath. So the story in a nutshell is that this young boy, 8 years old, has been institutionalized for a couple of years because of circumstances in which his younger brother died. And the titular nanny does not want him to come home because that will displace her. The father wants her out so that he and his wife and his child can become a family unit again. And Nanny is not about to put up with that. So the book becomes about Nanny squaring off against this 8-year-old child. The 8-year-old child knows very well what she has in mind and is hell-bent on stopping her to save his own life. And nothing gets in the way of what Nanny wants. So it, like Evelyn Piper's other books, it takes off like a shot. And I can't say that you're going to say, oh, this is a hyper-realistic novel. But if you can suspend your disbelief or your belief, you are in for a wild time because the suspense never lets up. When Psycho number 2 gets involved, things ratchet up even more. Psycho number 2 also becomes a threat to our precocious 8-year-old. And there's really an interesting flipping going on here where the children are mature and have their wits about them. And many of the adults are immature, childlike, almost useless creatures who need to be taken care of by someone else. They cannot take care of themselves. They're weak-willed. They're easily manipulated by others, particularly the nanny. They really don't have a lot of backbone. They're kind of pathetic. And that is the way the nannies and other adults in the book like it, because it's easier to put them under their thumb. So just imagine the book as this wild and definitely over-the-top romp where 8-year-old tries to escape from psycho bitty nanny, and you'll know what it is. I enjoyed it greatly. I really think Evelyn Piper was terrific. Not quite as good as Bunny Lake is Missing, but still a really good book by her. My only complaint, too strong a word, is that I found the dialogue a little bit annoying. It's kind of stylized. The nanny speaks in this very British way that doesn't feel quite truly British. It feels more like the way an American thinks a British person would speak. And then there's sort of a lot of breathless dialogue between women who are useless human beings breathlessly begging for help or begging to be listened to or feeling threatened and not knowing what to do about it, so just kind of blathering on about it with no real agency. That does, as the plot progresses, a little of that goes away. But I did find the dialogue in here occasionally annoying. But overall, that did not affect my overall enjoyment of the book. So I really would like to recommend that you try Evelyn Piper. This is a fast read, 2 nights. When you're done with it, you'll be sort of shell-shocked, like, what did I just read? You know, almost like you've been punched in the face. And then maybe the next day you think, well, you know, maybe there are some plot points, or maybe even the entire book doesn't really hold up to close scrutiny, but it is wildly entertaining and a lot of fun, almost giddy fun because it's so over the top in so many ways. And your next thought, I hope, will be, I must read more by Evelyn Piper. So that is Evelyn Piper and the Nanny for now. I have more of her books on my shelf. I will review them as I read them, although it'll be a few months down the road because I don't like to read books by the same author back to back. I feel like I enjoy them the most when I read one, then go back 6 months later and read another. So thank you for listening, and I'll be back with more reviews of Forgotten Mysteries when I have them. Good night.